Have you been looking for a business podcast with hosts and guests who don't have a stick up their ass?
Yeah, I said it.
Damn! Well, if so, welcome to your new home, brother. This is My Fence Life. Woo! Our three passions are beer, bourbon, and business. And probably in that order. We're bringing on business owners who share tips, tricks, and behind-the-scenes stories to help your business be more successful. And we drink during the show. So no matter what industry you're in, pop a cold one and come on in. Welcome to the My Fence Life Studio.
Hey, what's happening, Fence Lifers? Look who we got. We got Matt Warner, the man, the myth, the legend.
What's going on, Bill?
How you doing, man? I hadn't seen you in a while.
Well, I've been working, man. I've been trying to stay ahead of the curve, baby.
I know. We got to do that, bro. We got to, right?
It's good stuff. Yeah. Sometimes what did we say last time? You got to get in the arena.
Yeah, man. That's what I did. I just did a 16-month in the arena.
Good
and
for
I'm
you.
finally back taking care of me, taking care of my family, taking care of Pepper. You know what I'm saying? She stuck with me through those 16 plus months. And so
she's still with you?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. She's still with me.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's unfortunate for her.
Huh.
Anyway, man. Dude, so this is Ask Me About My Day 112. We've had 112 phone calls. Can you believe that?
It's amazing.
It's insane, man. And look, me and you've been talking about cash flow, and you were giving me some pointers in my business for cash flow. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to get Matt on here, and we're going to talk about some of these things. So this is Ask Me About My Day, number 112,
Yeah.
The Don't Go Broke Cash Flow Survival Guide with Matt Warner.
Well, I don't know if it's a survival guide, but we're going to try to see if we can't put out a few little hints and tricks out there.
Definitely, man. So one of the first things we had talked about is what is cash flow and why is it important to small business owners? What are your thoughts on that, Matt?
Yeah, well, you know what, they say cash flow is one of the number one reasons for business owners not being able to either grow or even to lose their business. So cash flow is a really critical part of our success. And, in the fence industry, a lot of guys will say they do residential because they like the cash flow, which is all those deposits that you collect early on. But you can get cash flow a lot of different ways and try to make it work. But residential really does help with cash flow.
Well, yeah, it does, but it can also be a false sense of security because you got all this cash and you think you got money. The next thing you know, by the time you get to the job, you're going to spend it somewhere else if you don't allocate it properly.
Discipline is the key with cash flow. You have to stay disciplined and you have to live amongst your means and you have to be planning out, especially when you're growing, because if you just wake up one day and you say, I have $100,000 in the bank, I'm going to go buy a $60,000 truck. That's not smart.
Yeah, because you got to make sure you can cover your bills, cover your expenses, invest in your growth, so,
right.
You can face some financial challenges, man, big time, and what happens if you can't make payroll or pay your suppliers?
Yeah.
Then you end up being one of those guys on TV going, hey, I paid this guy a deposit and he never came and did my fence. And, Action 8 News is trying to get after you.
That's not a good way to make the news.
No, it's not. It's not. We want to make the news for good things, right?
Right.
So what are some common cash flow challenges that small business owners face, Matt?
I really think the biggest challenge on staying on top of your cash flow is when you're growing, right? When you're trying to stay ahead of the growth and I've always said there's only two ways to grow: borrowed money or profits. But you have to know where your profit lies within your cash flow.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to know what your bills are, and and that's why I tell people all the time: know what your overhead costs and expenses are. You have to plan that out. You have to be constantly going through your WIP, or we call it a WIP, work in progress. All your backlog of work of what's coming up and what's on there next, and then you have to be managing that so you know when you're billing and when you're going to get paid bill. That's all part of that cash flow scheme.
That's a weekly thing that Ron, the consultant, makes me do. He'll shoot me a text and goes, "Hey, I need some napkin math. Give me some napkin math real quick." And I'll sit down and go, "All right, this is how much cash we got on hand. This is how much is pending, waiting to hit the bank that we've collected, but it's still waiting to pay. It's pending. This is how much the guys are working on this week. So this is what I'm forecasting coming in at the end of the week." And then I start breaking down what bills I paid and which ones I haven't paid. And we get a nice little, meter of how the business is doing that way.
Yeah, that's so. I get a report. I call it my Friday report every single Friday. Every single Friday afternoon, I do a Friday report, and that basically it's Sarah telling me exactly what you just said, but it's in an email form, and then she puts together a nice little paragraph that tells me what she plans to pay and what she plans to hold, and how much money we need tomorrow, how much money we need next week, and how much money we need in 2 weeks. So that's a weekly ritual for us, and we've been doing that ever since 2009, and that's been a little bit. And I helped Cannon with it once, and he swears by our Friday reports. He says it's one of the ways that he stays on top of his accounting is the Friday reports.
Yeah, man. So that's what we've been doing. And when he said that, I was like, man, this is kind of like what Matt was talking about when you and Cannon had that conversation. And he goes, yeah, it's exactly. I need to know the health of the business. We need to look at how many jobs we're signing on, what's way down the pipeline, what's just next week, 2 weeks out, and where we're at. So
and that is the forecasting. That's the projecting is trying to figure out where you're at. But whoever's doing your books or helping you with your books, if you can get them to give that to you, now you know exactly where you stand and how much money you need. And I'm going to tell you, earlier you had said, you got to make sure you make payroll. And I'm going to tell you that the first time that you miss payroll, you should probably panic. I remember in my first business, there was a couple times I had to ask people to wait on payroll, and eventually I ended up collapsing and filing bankruptcy and going under. And I one of the rules that I made is we will always make sure that we cover our payroll, and we will always make sure we have enough money to pay off our credit card. That's just how we roll.
Yeah. So yeah, man, that forecasting is a big deal, and it's not hard to do, man, guys. If you don't have, it's really not that hard to do. Take cash on hand, keep track of what you owe. For you smaller guys that are out there, build a spreadsheet. Just start getting it down, and as you pay something, just delete it. So you can have a grasp of what you owe and what you got coming in, and you ought to know what your weekly payroll is. I know what mine is. I got it on that napkin math. I paid this week's payroll already, and I already got next week's payroll figured into that napkin math that I do for him.
Yep.
So we get a good pulse. So we're always at least a week ahead, at least.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, then you get late payments. I was talking to a buddy of mine this weekend. He's got an installation company, and he had an issue. He's got about $25,000 owed to him in his second year business out of 3 different contractors. They haven't paid him. So he's at his suppliers going, I can't pay you. Now, this happened about 6-8 months ago when him and I had this conversation, but now he's doing things differently to keep that cash flow coming because it got him in a spot. You know? So anyway, man. So Matt, what are some strategies that small business owners can use to improve their cash flow?
Well, obviously deposits or collecting some upfront money helps with material and with doing that. But I also believe that one thing you should be constantly doing is knowing what your profits are. and holding some of those profits back to make sure that in case somebody doesn't pay you or you get behind, that you constantly have some money to grab. And, you know, there's different systems out there. Some people will have a separate account for their profits that they put in there. I don't go to that extreme. I keep it all in there. I just make sure that Sarah and I always know where we're at profit-wise, because that profit is something that you can use in between time to get you through there. But you always have to make sure that you have an ability. The other big thing is to help with cash flow is to have a line of credit. And the way you have a line of credit is to make sure that you and your banker have an extremely good relationship, so you can use some of that cash when people are either slow paying you or you're getting behind. But you know, a line of credit, I think, is something that everybody should have, but you have to be disciplined with it. You can't just look at that and say, I've got $50,000 sitting there ready to go. I always make sure that I have 2 payrolls worth of either a line of credit or cash on hand at all times. That's an entire month, no matter what. And then I try to make sure that I also have 3 months worth of overhead constantly saved up.
Okay. Wow. That's good to know, because see, I do things kind of like that, but a little differently. I have a line of credit with my bank, but I don't really ever touch it. I do, but I don't. You know, some months I just use it to pay a bill and wait a month and pay it off just so they can see I'm using it. But that is my safety net. That's my we keep 2 weeks of payroll in there.
Sure.
And then we take what our average is of our suppliers and usually have it in there. So I've got, you know, at least 2 weeks of material and 2 weeks of payroll set aside, just in case. You never know what's going to happen, man.
So we pay bi-weekly. So
okay,
yeah,
so we do weekly.
We keep 2 payrolls, which is a month, you know. So we try to make sure we have that on hand at all times. But it gets tough too when you know, we're over 100 people now, so payroll's a big nut.
Yeah, it is, man. And you know, like I'll tell you another thing that is big. You got to invoice promptly. You know, I got a new assistant and I didn't realize it. And I had about 6 invoices that had been sent out since Tuesday of last week. So I was on it today. You know, I'm like, "Hook, girl, we got to get these out." You know, I didn't realize I was working on this. So I had to kind of give her these are your top priorities. You know, every day, this is what you do. As soon as you walk in the door and before you leave the end of the day, you need to make sure that these invoices are sent. So I had about 6 jobs that I had to get out. And luckily, I think 2 of them paid today. So I'll be on them tomorrow. But, you know, that's a big deal. And I think another way that I see in our business, the way we get cash flow is we negotiate some terms with our suppliers. You know, we get with those guys and we negotiate lines of credit with them and we negotiate terms with them. You know, if I can pay early and save 2%, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and on commercial jobs, some of these vendors will work with you on it. If it's a big job, they'll give you 3 or 4 months to even to help you get going a little bit. So it's good. I mean, on the whole commercial side of things, you can build, and this is a really deep conversation, so I'll just touch the outskirts of it. But you can build your SOV to a point where you're billing a little bit heavier in the front, but you have to be disciplined enough to not be overbilled, because one of the biggest mistakes people make in the commercial world is they overbill, and then they got all this money in, they think they're doing great, but really they don't have any money because all that money's spent. So there's some checks and balances there, but you don't ever want to be overbilled by any means, but you can bill a little bit heavy in the front end on that SOV.
Well, I'll tell you something that I learned with Master Halco. They'll do a job release for you. So we did a big commercial job for Keo France School here in town. And instead of using my line of credit, I just had to fill out some paperwork, get the generalists to fill out some paperwork, and they went ahead and drop shipped on the job, and I didn't have to pay the bill until it was finished, you know? And it didn't interrupt my normal line of credit. So it made business flow to where I didn't have this huge chunk of money that I owed in 30 days. And it took us 45 to do it. And then another 14 to get paid. So if they don't pay, or that you haven't paid your bill in 30 days, they contact the GC. Hey, the job's not done yet. It got held up. Halco will push it back so you can pay when it's done. And that's exactly how it went, man. I was real impressed on how smooth it went.
Yeah,
I really was.
Stevens Piping still does that too.
Good. That's good to know, man, because we're doing more and more chain link, a lot more.
It's good,
you know. And another thing is I got in a little crunch about a year or so ago, and you want to know how I created cash flow? I cut expenses.
Yeah.
See, that's real easy to create cash flow. You know, you start cutting all the fat. The next thing you know, your bills aren't as much, and you got more money in the checking account.
Yeah. I think that's something everybody should do. You should do some spring cleaning every year, and you should go through and try to see if you can tighten up your belt a little bit. And I think that's just a good business practice. Constantly live on that living amongst your means. We tell our people to do that with their personal life, but we have to do that with our business also. We have to live amongst our means. We have to know where we're at all times and live amongst your means.
It's the old tube of toothpaste analogy, right?
Right.
You squeeze that sucker till you get every last drop out of it. If you cut your expenses, then you'll get every drop out of that tube of toothpaste, And then inventory is the other thing, man. I walk around the yard and I'm like, what is this? Why aren't we using that? Why hasn't that been returned? And the next thing you know, you got a credit on your invoices because you're returning things that you didn't use or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
A damaged gate. Well, we got charged for the second gate for the aluminum gate. We got to get this one back so we can get credit for it.
Yeah.
Just simple things like that, man.
It is. I love it. That's good stuff. That's really good stuff, Daniel.
Thank you, man. That means a lot to me coming from you, bro.
Oh, stop it.
So how can a small business owner handle late paying customers? That's a big one.
I'll tell you on the, I had a good friend of mine. I'm going to tell a side on the commercial side of things first. So, I was talking to one of my mentors one time, and we were talking about on these commercial jobs. And I said, holy cow, some of these guys are they're constantly 80, 90, 120 days out. And he goes, what's the big deal? And I was like, well, I'd like to get paid. He goes, well, if you know they're constantly late, why aren't you charging them for it? And I was like, well, what do you mean? He said, just build in whatever your fees are for you to borrow money to get through that 90 to 120 days, and you become their banker. What's the big deal? Now, that's a little bit in the commercial world. We don't really want to be somebody's banker, but if you're charging them interest for it up front on the bid when you turn it in, is it so bad? So I think that I have about 5 people we work for. They have always paid us, but it's always between 90 and 120 days. And a lot of my competition won't work for them because they can't figure out how to cash flow that. We've been able to get an extra percentage, some extra points on those jobs because we just know they're going to be late. So we plan for it. And I just build it into the estimate. And now it's like getting interest on my money. So it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
With the residential side, obviously we're very fortunate. We don't have a lot of people that are that late of paying us or that don't pay us. I think last year we might have wrote off like $2,000 is all. So most people are pretty good about paying. And I don't like to go through the whole lien process and doing all that. I've done it. It's never fun.
No.
We just try to make sure too that we're using that My Salesman tool up front. And if they refuse to use that, we refuse to do their jobs because we know they're probably going to be one of those customers that don't want to pay us. And I know that sounds weird that we're using a lead qualifying software, but that's also our first test to see what kind of person we're dealing with. So we've just we just don't tolerate it. If you don't follow our system, we don't do your fence.
Yeah, man. I find that if people don't want to follow your SOPs right in the beginning,
yep, you're
going to have problems through and through and through.
I think that's the number one telltale sign of a bad customer.
Well, Joe Everett said that. I was like, man, that's pretty interesting. So when I get a customer that doesn't want to follow the way we do things, we just cut them loose. And you know what they'll say? Well, you're the owner. You can do it. Like, it's even worse if I do it, because then that tells my team that they can do it too.
Not gonna do it. Not gonna do it.
I'm like, I'm the one that definitely can't do it. If one of my team does it, I scream at them, get on their ass. Have you ever seen me do that? But yeah, they go, oh, you're the owner, you can do it. No, it doesn't work that way. Right. And one of the things we do is, man, we set clear payment terms, and we ensure that our contracts depict that, and we have penalties for late payments. Have I ever charged a penalty for a late payment? No. But I tell you what, if it's in my agreement saying, hey, it's due upon receipt, every day that it's late, it's an additional $100, and they call me 5 days later, finally to pay, I can say, you know what, Mr. Jones, we're going to go ahead and waive that $500 late fee. Let's just go ahead and get that paid today. But it makes them pay. Sure. Never had to use it, but it sure is nice to have it to lean on when I'm dealing with a customer, and of course this is residential, because I do a lot of residential. You do a lot of commercial. How much residential commercial do you think you do? Like this net. See this net job behind me? That's a job we did down in Texas. I noticed that, man. It looks nice. Isn't that cool? Yeah, very cool. I noticed it when you got on. We do probably about 90-10, 90% commercial, 10% residential. Okay. But you still dabble in the residential. Oh yeah, we run 2 or 3 crews. Yeah, I got you. But and then we follow up, man. I use those automations in Job Nimbus, and we follow up. Once we send that bill, that sucker's hitting you every day, reminding you that, hey, you got to pay this bill. That's good stuff. Yeah. So, and then and look, I've had to offer payment plans before. You get with a customer and they're being truthful with you and like, hey, look, this is going on, that's going on. Okay, let's work something out, because I'd rather get something than nothing. Right. And I've had it happen. Miss Jones is like, well, you know what? I can pay half of what I owe you today, and in 14 days when I get my next check, I can pay the other half. Sure, let's do it. And we do it. But at least we're getting paid instead of just going, oh, Right. If you do that, Miss Jones, we'll go ahead and waive all the late fees, and we'll just get this done. And we end up getting a good review out of it, and then we get our daughter's fence and our son-in-law's fence, and you end up getting more and more fences, man. And it's feasible for both of us, Yeah, makes sense. So anyway, man, we had about the 20-minute mark, bro. I try to keep these phone calls short. So how about I bring you back for part 2 on this, and we knock it out the park. I love it. Let's do it. All right, man. I'll see you shortly. And hey, guys, y'all keep on fencing.
You've been listening to My Fence Life. Yes, we like to have fun. Beer, bourbon, and business. And although we have fun, we take our business very seriously. Dan Blanc is known as the Fence King, and he's been providing high-quality fence solutions since 1999. He's connected to industry leaders, business leaders, financing experts, and marketing gurus that will be on the show to talk about their success stories. To find out more about us, hit the website at myfencelife.com. Listen to the show wherever you consume your content. We are everywhere. Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcast. See you next time on My Fence Life.